everyone.
Good evening.
I'd like to welcome you all to the Thursday, February 9th, 2023 special meeting, public work session of the Portsmouth City School Board. As I call this meeting to order, ask you please stand now for a brief moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Dr. Ingrid Whitaker. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. We will now have the school board mission statement by Dr. Whitaker.
The mission of the Portsmouth Public School Division is to engage all students in learning that will foster academic excellence and responsible citizenship.
Thank you so much. Agenda item 2.5 is attendance. Ms. Chambers.
Ms. Atkinson?
Here.
Mrs. Futrell?
Here.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes. Here.
Mrs. Shoemake?
Here.
Mrs. Thomas?
Here.
Dr. Whitaker? Here. Dr. Patillo?
Here.
7 members present, 1 member absent.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Cotton's about 10 minutes out. She'll be in a few moments.
Okay.
Agenda item 2.6, consideration of the agenda for February 9th, 2023. I entertain a motion at this time.
Move for approval. Second.
Motion made by Ms. Shoemake, second by Vice Chair Atkinson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Futrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Mrs. Shoemake?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Dr. Patillo?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you so much. And before we move to our next agenda item, I did want to acknowledge Portsmouth City Council member Mr. Hugo, who's here with us on tonight's our work session. Thank you for coming, sir. Agenda item 3.1, closed session. I'll ask that our Vice Chair read a motion at this time.
I move that the board enter into a closed meeting under provisions of section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia for the following purpose: consideration of various personnel matters, including the assignment, performance, and resignation of school employees as permitted under subsection A.1.
Second.
Motion has been made by Vice Chair Atkinson, second by Ms. Hines. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mrs. Futrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Hines?
Yes.
Mrs. Shoemake?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Dr. Patillo?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you so much. We're now entering a closed meeting at this time. I'm a yes as well. Motion was made by Vice Chair Atkinson, second by Ms. Futrell.
Thank you.
Unanimous vote. All right. Thank you all for your patience. Hello to our co-school board rep. Agenda item 3.2, consideration of the appointment of an interim school board member to serve from February 10th, 2023 until November 7th, 2023. I entertain a motion at this time.
I move to appoint Irene Boone to the position from, what is the,
February 10th.
February 10th until November 7th, 2023.
Need a second?
Motion been made. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Dr. Whitaker. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Atkinson?
Yes.
Dr. Cotton?
Yes.
Mrs. Futrell?
Abstain.
Mrs. Hines?
No.
Mrs. Shoemake?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker?
Yes.
Dr. Patillo?
Yes.
6 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention. It passes.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Chambers, will you, well, you've already made the appointment with the city clerk for
The
swearing in. We
Yes.
just have to notify the candidate.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So you want me to call her in the morning or tonight?
Yeah, probably tonight, probably better.
Okay. Then Irene Boone.
Agenda item 3.3, recognition, BSBA School Board Clerk Appreciation Week, February 13th through the 17th, 2023. And we have certificates. We have certificates for the greatest school board clerk and deputy clerk.
Amen.
And the Lamb, and I'll read it, the 2023 VSBA School Board Clerk / Deputy Appreciation Week, February 13th through the 17th, 2023. In appreciation of your dedication and hard work for public education through continued service to the students of the Commonwealth of Virginia, this presented to Kathy Chambliss, and it's presented by myself, the chair, signed by the Executive Director, Gina Patterson, and David Woodard, President. And we have the same thing for our Deputy Clerk,
right,
Ms.
now.
Brenda Stewart. Let's give her a hand. And because all three of you ladies is so sweet. we have nothing but cakes for you.
Those are the best.
Thank you all so much. All right. Thank you. Agenda item 3.4, report superintendent's estimate of needs. Dr. Brady.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Chairman Patillo, Vice Chair Atkinson, and members of the board. Tonight, good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight I'm here to present for your consideration my estimate of needs for the 23-24 school year. Before we begin, I must give credit where credit is due and thank our very talented CFO, Mr. Theo Falk, and his entire team for the work that they did to complete this proposal. In fact, at this time, I will defer to Mr. Falk at this time so he can review with you the funding and revenue sources.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Dr. Patillo, Ms. Atkinson, school board members, it's that time of year again. The budget time. We're about to give you the CON for FY 23-24. I try to do this every year, but I want to make sure just not only you, but for our general public to understand the funds that make up our annual operating budget. In the center is our general fund. That's our general operating budget fund for the year. That encompasses all of the things we do every day for the students, the staff, buildings, making sure they're maintained, from managing bus driving, transportation, anything that relates to the operation of the school each day at 77%. I go next to the grants fund, funds from federal, state, local sources that help us manage our budgets with additional funds for some specific purposes like Title I or special ed. and others from other specialized sources for things that people help us do each day. Next is our risk management fund. That is the fund that manages our health insurance programs, dental insurance, our risk management for all of our buildings, any of our liability insurances. That's at 9%. Our cafeteria fund, obviously, that manages our food services program to get the nutritious meals to our students each day at 4%. And then lastly, our textbook fund, that manages funds for our textbook purchases throughout the district at a grand total of 1%. If you add all those up, I think they're 100%. And we support the school systems in that regard. Next slide, Dean. So just want to give you a snapshot of the total budget for this year. That total is $247.5 million. It's made up of those 5 funds I just talked about that make up our funds for the year. I just wanted to bring to your attention, we'll probably focus on the general fund the most in this presentation, but just want to see how much money comes through. I want to make a note on grants fund. That are the recurring grants. As you know, grants sometimes are given for more than 1 year. So we have grants that carry over each year. What we do with those is we go back to City Council and ask for reappropriation of the carryover dollars. So that $22.3 million is what's recurring. We have other grants that we will be going to Council probably within the next month or so from last year after the audit is over to carry those over for future years. Most of our grants are 27 months. Some end up being 3 to 5 years, just depending on the funding source. Next slide, Dean.
Yep.
So this year, our proposed operating budget for 22-23 in this current year was $182.4 million. The proposed operating budget next year will be $190.3 million, or a difference of about $7.9 million. Dr. Bracey will go over kind of what that difference is in his presentation, but as you know, that includes everything that the school division does. Next slide. We got to talk about a state budget revenue area. I'm sure all of you have seen it, heard about it in the news. I'm going to try to give you a Cliff Notes version of what happened. So all finance directors and superintendents across this great state, we're putting our budgets together, and then on January 27th, we get a letter. And it says, we found an error. We caused the error, but we think you knew about it. And so we're not going to do anything about it. And of course, all the superintendents and the finance directors in the state said, hold on.
Right.
No, we're not going to do that.
Right.
So we at that point came up with a meeting, and we worked with the VDOE and them to try to figure out what happened. Normally, the state puts out what they call their budget calculation tool. And that's how we derive our revenues and what our revenues will be for that next year. It takes a whole bunch of inputs and put in. You can't calculate it yourself because it's in a calculation template. They give it to us. So we take what they give us and make our budgets from that way. The error in this case was related to the grocery sales tax hold harmless. So everybody knows January 1st, the grocery tax went away except for the 1% that the localities do. The 1.5% went away. So now you pay 1% instead of 2.5% on your groceries. Well, when they did the calculation, they forgot to subtract that particular hold harmless from basic aid. If you go to the next slide, then I'll try to make that a little clear. So what happens with the basic aid calculation is when any increase or decrease in sales tax is subtracted from the basic aid calculation that we receive from the state. So if they tell us we're getting $20 million in sales tax, then that's subtracted from the basic aid in the calculation template. The state forgot to do that with this whole harmless grocery tax. So that's namely why we're looking at a loss of revenue in this current year of $867,000 and then $2.1 million in the 23-24 year. So we've talked to VDOE, they've had webinars, we have heard through media, through other reports that the General Assembly has explored funding options, and they're going to try to hold divisions harmless from that era. The problem is we don't know how that's going to be done. We've heard that they're going to increase sales tax. If you increase sales tax, that exasperates the problem. So we're trying to make sure we know what the solution is to see what the effect is going to be on the schools. We're hopefully that they'll make a decision that's favorable to us and that we can retain those estimates in the state calculation tool. So in the next slides that I give you, I'm just going to assume that they're going to hold us harmless for that, and that we're not going to subtract this $2.1 million out of what they told us they were going to give us up front. Next slide. So when you go to our budgeted revenue sources, obviously we have state, local, state sales tax, other funds, federal funds. You can see that that's $186.5 million. The bulk of that money comes from state funds, which is about 55% of our money. Next comes local funds at 59.9. That is a number that is static from last year's budget. Dr. Bracy will talk a little bit more about that in his presentation. We have 10% coming from state sales tax, 19.6 million. Let me say also, that number they give us for sales tax is our responsibility. So in other words, if they tell us we get 19.5, we have to monitor that through the year, because if 19.2 comes, that's on us. Now, if 20 million comes, we get the extra. But the number we use is what the state gives us, and we're held to that standard. That's why that number is so important. And then on other funds, we get $1.4 million, which is a lot of miscellaneous funds that we receive from various areas in the school division. And then federal funds, mainly Medicaid reimbursements as well as impact aid money at $650,000. Next slide, Dean. Oh, that goes to Dr. Bracy. I'm sorry. I'm going to turn it over to the guru of this CI, Dr. Bracy.
Thanks, Mr. Falk, and thank you for that budget for class. I really appreciate you explaining the error that was made, because that has really been a heartburn for the superintendents and all of our weekly meetings. And to think that that's going to be shifted down for us to deal with, is unacceptable. But we have been in contact with our local delegate, Don Scott, as well as Senator Lucas, and they are working hard to try to help us through that piece of it. So for my portion, what I want to share this year with our planning document, I have two clear priorities that I want to share with you. And I want to thank you all as board members, our community and staff, for giving us input into the conversations that we're going to have tonight. So those priorities are employee compensation and school safety. First, I want to talk about the employee compensation. Last year I came to you for a recommendation of 5% raise for all of our employees. I'm here again requesting another 5% for 23-24. As in last year, the governor's proposed budget included a 5% raise, but of course, we've talked about this, that's only for the SOQ positions. However, we realize that all of our staff members deserve the same amount each year, not just for those in those specified positions. Therefore, I'm again proposing that we increase all of our employees so that they all receive the 5% raise, and that will be a cost to the division of $6.7 million. Additionally, also included in the governor's budget, I'm proposing a 1% bonus for all employees who return to the division for the 23-24 school year. This bonus will be paid in the fall of 2023. This will be a cost of $1.1 million. We know that our teachers, bus drivers, and employee groups deserve infinitely more for the work that they do for our children each and every day. However, given the constraints of state funding this year, I can say that we're doing the most that we can to keep our salaries competitive in the region. That said, we will continue our advocacy efforts to the local and state level to increase funding for public education, specifically in regards to staff salaries.
Hey, Dr. Bracy, can I add something there?
Yes, sir.
On that particular one, $800,000 is included in this budget, but it actually is going to cost us about $1.1 million based on estimates, because that particular retention bonus is only for those that have worked with us in 2020, 22, 23. and they come back in 23, 24. So the rest of that money related to that bonus, we're going to pay out of some of our federal funds. So I just want to make that distinction. It's $800,000 included in this budget, but it's going to actually cost right now an estimate of $1.1 million. Now, if more people are retained, which we hope we can, it may be more, and that would be a good thing.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Would that bonus be on one lump paycheck, or is it going to?
We're going to probably do, what I try to do with bonuses is do them in a separate paycheck.
Okay.
Reasoning being is that I don't want an employee not to be able to see how much they're getting, and it's lumped into other taxes. Bonuses are taxed at a different rate than other your regular pay, so we try to do it separately, usually on an all payroll cycle, so we get paid about every 2 weeks. I usually try to do it in that all payroll week. That way everybody can see it. And I'll throw this out there. Normally, if we say we're giving you, if it's $1,000 bonus, that's what you're getting. We try to pick up the taxes. And whatever that means for us, we don't say we're giving you $1,000 and then you go home with $600. So my goal at this point, not knowing how revenue is going to work, is to give that 1% bonus, whatever that would be, in the actual number to that person.
And I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know that it's in the governor's budget, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But did it specify that it's just for SOQ
Just for
funding?
SOQ.
I
I'm
thought
sorry.
so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just for SOQ.
thought
Most
so.
of the time when the governor presents or puts in his budget, it's only for SOQ positions.
Right.
They do not fund additional positions to give raises or bonuses. So that's up to us to generate additional revenue, either from the locality or other sources, to make sure that we can take care of all of our employees. Because if we only did SOQ, we'd have a whole bunch of people walking out of the door. Because the state, it's a minimum standard. It's not a standard to staff a school appropriately. It's a minimum standard. I could give you a whole bunch of examples, but we don't have time, about things like assistant principals, how many we're funded for at the elementary level.
Like three.
Yeah, like three at the elementary level. Imagine a whole school division with 3 elementary school assistant principals.
Right.
But that's the SOQ standard.
Right, and I just wanted I wanted to clarify that because I did read that in the governor's budget that it's just for SOQ
Yes, ma'am.
funded
Instructional
positions.
position.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
And so just to clarify, because people always say, well, the governor gave you the money for the raise.
Yes.
No, that doesn't include cafeteria workers, bus drivers, monitors, all those things, all of the instructional assistants we have, all of them are not covered in SOQ as well. So
I had a question about the last slide.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the prerequisite to get the bonus? Is it just that you had to be employed with us that 1 year prior to?
You have to be employed at any point in 2022, 2023, according to the governor's language.
Okay.
Yep. As of right now.
Nice. Okay.
As of right now.
Things always
And I'm
change.
glad you said that.
Right.
Thank you for that clarification and asking that question. So the next priority, school security. I can speak as a father, former school administrator, and a superintendent. When I shared that, our hearts were broken when the news came about the 6-year-old child bringing a gun to school and shooting his teacher. But it's the latest in a string of school shootings that simply should not be taking place in today's world. We've seen too much violence at schools, too much violence in our own communities, and too much violence across the nation.
Absolutely.
As such, we're continuing to be proactive in finding solutions to keep our schools safe and secure as possible. As you know, we've ordered the new weapons detection system for all of our middle and high schools. Last month, we requested the city further support this effort by allocating $4.6 million in additional funding to buy these same systems at our elementary schools and centers. However, we also need additional comprehensive supports. Tonight, I'm here proposing a creation of a new position, a school safety coordinator, who will oversee the management of our security systems and technology, as well as lead all required safety trainings for the school division. In addition, with the implementation of these new systems, we will need to bring additional personnel on site. I'm requesting an additional 20 part-time security officers that will be based at elementary schools at morning arrival times to help with the screenings and also provide support as needed at the schools. This cost will come at about $530,000. Of course, we know that proactive measures extend beyond personnel and new software. The heart of the issue comes at addressing the students' unique mental and social emotional needs. As you may have seen in this Sunday's edition of the Virginian Pilot, we have been very diligent in finding solutions and resources to support our community's mental health needs, including our Here to Help website, partnerships with companies such as Care Solace and Panorama, and even seeking grant opportunities for additional personnel. We are continuing this effort by providing more social emotional learning resources in our division and training for staff members. We also want to make sure that we're making the appropriate interventions at the right time for our students when they come to us, including our youngest learners in our division's preschool programs. The sooner we can get students in our doors and support their learning and model behavior expectations, the more successful we will see their transition to the comprehensive school environment and in their scholastic achievements. Tonight, I'm recommending an additional $300,000 to fund additional resources for our preschool program. These were among the largest new budget items in my proposal tonight. However, I do want to assure the board that I'm also recommending the continuation or expansion of some successful programs in which we continue to participate in, including our career and technical education program. These include the expansion of our in-house CTE programs to include GoTech, welding, building trades, and automotive technology, a pilot program for financial literacy instruction, and the continuation and expansion of the division's language immersion program. Additional support for maintenance of our facilities, including equipment and contractor services, and general fund transfers to cover allocated risk management expenses, specifically any increases associated with healthcare coverage. To summarize, we're expecting proposed revenues of approximately $186.5 million. Our total expenditures are expected to be approximately $190 million. As a result, we will request additional funding of $3.78 million from the city to fund the initiatives proposed tonight in our general operating budget. While this is another request for additional funds to the city this year, it is my ardent belief that it is necessary in order for us to provide a safe, secure, and comprehensive learning environment for the children of our city, as well as our family, staff, and community as a whole. This concludes my budget proposal. I again want to thank the board for sharing their priorities, as well as our wonderful budget team for putting this budget together. And I'm happy to take any questions you may have at this time.
And thank you. Dr. Bracey, I want to thank you for this, but I do need to clarify one thing. Dean, can we go back a couple slides to the ongoing 1, 2, because we had something in there about, right there, one more, yep, there we go. The pilot program for financial literacy instruction. We do already have a mandated class that is a graduation requirement. This is because we talked about it in our meeting with, I'm about to call you doctor again.
It's all right.
Mr. Falk. This would be like financial literacy like 2.0, you know, so it would be about investing. It would be about entrepreneurial things.
Nice.
Because that financial literacy piece that the students have to go through now is checking, is savings, is applying for credit cards and what that means. But what we've heard time and time again, and we've had student representatives previous to these, but also with us having contact with older kids, why didn't anybody tell me about this, you know? So to look at the investment pieces, and I didn't want people to get confused, because that is already a class that is a mandated requirement for graduation. This would be above and beyond, and could also be linked to a number of our CTE courses as far as entrepreneurial, to create a track for them to walk out of here with those options too. So I just wanted to, I saw that one and I'm like, let's clarify for just a second. So thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, no worries. I do want to say I appreciate the work that has been done, and I full on support everything that's in this budget. So thank you very much. It is concise, and it's what we've been talking about, and it's what is needed in today's scary world for schools. So thank you.
Vice Chair Axe, and then Ms.
Thank you, Chair. Like Board Member Hines said, I agree with everything that's in the budget. I know we're adding security officers, and I see the security supervisor, but what I don't see is a interventionist. Right now, we do have a lot of gang activity in our schools. We have fights daily, and we have the resources of security, but we don't have anybody that's about intervention and prevention. So I would definitely like to see that. That could prevent some of the fights going on. This person can identify gang activity and stop things before it starts. So I would like to see that as well, because I don't think the school, is it the security supervisor? I don't think the school security supervisor can be an interventionist and about prevention. So I would like to see that in our schools as well.
You're talking about the SSOs.
The SSOs wouldn't necessarily be like intervention because they're.
You talking about the new position that we're talking about?
Right.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm with you.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bracy. Thank you, Mr. Falk, for putting this together. And I also wanted to go back to, I think I had two questions. One on the recommended budget initiatives, the one with the GoTech up there. It went back quickly. I was trying to take notes here, but can you go back to that slide?
17.
Okay. Yeah, so that expansion of in-house CTE programs to include GoTech, we actually have been talking about that and excited about it in the CTE committee meetings. And we know it's coming to Craddock Middle School. Is that expansion for that piece that's almost completed, or is that to expand it to other middle schools?
GoTech is going to be at Craddock.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's for the budget we're requesting is to continue to make sure that's completed. Okay.
Yes.
I didn't know if we were like recommending additional funds to now move forward with the expansion, which I want to say we advocate strongly for in our CTE committee. We talked about just grabbing students earlier through career exploration. So I just wanted to make sure I understood that, yes.
And also, he's going to explain it's more than just the GoTech.
Right. Yes.
Oh, right. I know it's the additional bringing the CTE courses in-house too, right? Yes.
Right. So yeah. So those funds are also going towards.
Yeah. The Emily Spawn. You know, we're trying to get the
Outfit
building
that.
right so that we can bring those programs in over there. I signed off earlier today to the state for the new programs to be taught here.
Okay.
So that went in today for the automotive, building trades, and so forth. Yeah.
All right, thank you for putting the continuation of the language immersion. I know we're still doing the groundwork there with partnering with the company, so thank you. And I think my other question, you already answered it for me in our committee meeting, but just in case any public was concerned the way I was as a parent of an elementary student, when I heard weapons detecting, I thought about, so people might already know, but you know, I definitely am all for school safety, not just for our students and our teachers. When we talked about expanding it, you know, due to recent activities in Newport News, and also some things we've seen locally here in our own district, you know, having metal detectors and seeing kindergartners and so forth walk through, you know, you picture that, and it's not the best feeling to see that. So Dr. Bracy and Mr. Falk, you all have explained like what we're talking about with the weapons detection, and it's not that. So it would be great in case the public is thinking along the lines I'm thinking of, over asking, you know, first, second graders to walk through.
You want me to?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So I think, you know, initially when we think of weapons detection in our mind, we go back to each student coming into the door being warned, frisked, you know, if something is detected. But with the new technology that they have now, is if you've been to any event at any of the stadiums for football, basketball games, or similar to what you see at the airports, you just walk through.
Right.
Yeah, and the
It's
systems.
not one by one.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, the systems are up, and the kids come in groups.
They wouldn't
You know,
even notice.
if you have a Chromebook with you, you take your Chromebook out, you keep walking. Nothing's detected, you keep going. If something is detected, the monitor that the SSO or whoever's manning that will have, it'll pinpoint exactly what area they need to look at. If it's something in the backpack, they'll say, hey, just put your backpack up here, and they'll go through the backpack, and then, but everybody else is steady moving. You know, we did a pilot on this back in December of 2021. So we've been going down this road for quite some time, doing some research, and just watching that 1 week that it was at Woodrow Wilson at the time. You know, the kids just came in as it got toward the end of the week. It became routine. You know, everybody was just walking in, and it really didn't delay anything. The first day that they had it set up, I know the high school started taking in around 7 o'clock. I arrived around 7:15 thinking that I was going to see it, but the majority of the students had already gone through. So it's that quick, and it's nothing that, you know, that would a kindergartner or a young child would look at and feel threatened by or emotionally disturbed.
Yeah. So I thought that was a great, it's needed, but I also thought about the psyche of the children. So I think explaining that as a parent at least made me even feel better. So thank you.
Dr. Whitaker.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Patillo, and thank you, Dr. Bracy and Mr. Falk for the budget. I also support it. The financial literacy piece, I agree, is something that we definitely need. I have college students that make the point that they did not learn enough in high school. So this will be a great benefit to our students. I know we can't get everything that we asked for, but the nursing piece or nursing program for CTE, I don't know if there are is there any way we could include that or get a grant or something, because there is a nursing shortage. It's a growing field, and that's a skill that you can get a job with, you know, right after graduation.
And if I remember correctly, your proposal was to go towards an LPN program, is that correct? Okay. Yeah, we've been working with Craig Hill and his team on some other programs to get there. I think we're creating another one for next year, and we're trying to get the space acclimated so that we can do more things over, I believe it's at Manor High School. So that's what we're trying to do now. So we'll hear more about that, but we got to get with the state and see what the requirements are to step up to an LPN program as well.
It was the age issue, and also they were having issues with them getting their hours.
Right, with the hospital.
And
right.
so that was a concern. I know it was a concern last year and the year before that about the CNAs getting their hours and
the gap between
the
the
location.
testing,
Yeah. And so I think the LPN piece, there's a age issue, just like with plumbing and electrical. In order for them to get their certifications, they have to, in order to take the test, they have to be 18. And so a lot of these things is just, you know, it's minuscule, but they have to be a certain age in order for us to do certain things, unfortunately.
But Ms. Shoemaker, you were trying to work on some legislators, I believe.
Yes,
on,
to try to change that.
the age.
Yeah, so we are working to try to change that. I don't know if it will happen this year, but hopefully, hopefully, yeah.
I know there's been proposed legislation to like lower age for like truck drivers and things like that because of the shortages. Yeah.
And COVID was actually the start of them considering lowering the age as it relates to nurses. And so they're still kind of working all of that out, as well as the other CTE proposals that we provided. So those were the issues in the past.
All right, thank you.
And it wasn't as detailed and thorough, but we had already asked the administration to put a plan in place. If you recall how we raised and leveled off the transportation department salaries, they also included this year with the process and plan to increase it for operations as far as electricians and plumbers. If you recall, they came asking, so that they did include that as well in the budget. So that piece is in there also. And with the financial literacy pilot, one of the great things about it is that, of course, with parent permission and support, they're actually starting investment accounts for these kids. So they're starting them Apple accounts with Apple stock or Microsoft stock. So that's another great thing about it. Is not just teaching them, but it's also giving them a good start as well. Yes.
Right.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I have a question just for clarity. I've noticed, I don't know what slide it was in, but I noticed it said the 20 new positions. Is that just going to be in the elementary schools, or is that going to also be in the middle schools and the high schools?
That would be at the elementary schools.
Only that is going to
Yeah.
Is there a reason why? Or?
Because right now at the middle and high schools, middle has two SSOs, school safety officers, and the high school has 4. So they have the manpower to man the systems. At the elementary school, they only have 1 SSO. So we needed to bring another maybe 1 to 2, depending on the size of the school, so that they wouldn't have to pull other staff members in to help screening those students as they come in the mornings.
Okay, and then my other question was similar to the topic they were talking about, the CE. The CTE.
CTE.
Yes. So the pharmacy tech, is that also incorporated in that, or is that something they had to lower the age for, or?
The
Pharmacy tech. I know that was at North.
So the issue with pharmacy tech, and this is again the issues we've had over the years. There haven't been enough participants, unfortunately, and that's the issue that we came across in a lot of our CTE programs, is that we can't continue to have them if we don't have participants. So, it seems like you are very educated on what's going on, so you could be part of the marketing piece to talk about some of our programs that we have, because it's hard to keep it funded if we only have 1 or 2, children that are interested in it. So that's been the issue with keeping a program like Pharmacy Tech. We don't have enough people that's interested in it.
And I'll add on to Ms. Shoemake, because we're both on the CTE. One thing that Ms. Shoemake just brought up is participation, and something we talk about constantly in our committee is how to increase participation and how to make sure that before students even get to high school or Northern, that they're aware, and that's part of why you're hearing us talk about like middle school career exploration more, career planning more, just starting to reach back, and we hope to even expand it earlier to either 4th and 5th grade, because it's the preparation and also the awareness of what programs are there before they even step foot into high school. So great question, and
absolutely
something
I've been talking about for the past 4 years, trying to get the word out. And so, being that you have some knowledge as to what's going on, maybe you can help us to create some type of way to educate our middle schoolers as well as our high schoolers about some of the opportunities that we have for them.
Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Falk.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. All right, Mr. Falk. So I remember the staff presentations and the custodians really, everybody stood out, but the custodians, they stood out a little bit more. So being that we're okay, so that was my question. Being that we was light with what we're asking from the city, I didn't want to assume that we covered some things that, they asked for as far as, the kind of step increases.
That's going to be something that has to come from the comp study that we're going to do.
Okay.
We're looking right now to get that RP out, hopefully in the spring, so we can get something in place, hopefully by early to late summer, and then get that done so we can start our budget process for next year.
Okay, gotcha.
Because when you start looking at those salary tables, if you take one and you do something with it and you don't look at the whole, it makes it really hard to manage it. So, but and I'm sorry, we had a slide in there and it kind of disappeared. We added an extra 5% for the operations employees. Dr. Bracy said it a little earlier. So all the non-exempt people in operations, your building trades, your custodians, food services, oh man, who else? Who am I missing? Warehouse, nutrition, all of those people over in auxiliary services. We added an additional 5% this year. That's what we could manage at this point. But we're still looking to look at the entire salary structure and try to make changes and figure out what it will cost us to get us where we need to be as related to market, and also to reward those employees for the years that they've kind of been in that area where there hasn't been money. So that's where we are. That's our goal, because even with our teacher salary scale, the same thing. We have compression. That's something that you can't do in-house. You got to get a professional to do it, give you some proposals and plans, and then we can sit down and decide how we attack that issue.
I agree.
Over the course of whatever it'll take to do it. It's going to take a lot of money.
And then one more thing. So, and I didn't see any nursing equipment up there, so we were able to take care of the additional equipment that they had needed or they requested.
Nursing what was it? Do you know exactly what it was? I just want to make sure, because we're doing some things over there right now.
It was some additional, the EpiPens did stand out.
EpiPens, oh yeah, we take care of that. EpiPens, inhalers, all of those things, we take care of that currently. What I tell all the people in the school division, if you have a need, let us know the need.
Okay.
There may not be money that's sitting there at the time on your line, but let us know the need, because sometimes things get lost. And then we try to work out a plan to make sure it happens, especially when it relates to student achievement. We do what we can to give them what they need. So if it's anything that you know, please shoot it my way, and we'll work with the health supervisor as well as anybody in the schools, and we'll do whatever we can to make sure those things happen.
And one more thing, we were able to supply in the event of a fentanyl overdose. We do have that in the schools, right?
I believe we do. Not exactly everything that I know in my area, but we can check. I'll check with Ms. Womack, and we can make sure that we have that available.
Finance guys, so they
I know. That's it. They got to come to me.
That's what I'm putting it together.
So yeah, I'll touch base with Ms. Womack on that. I think we've had a conversation about that, because there was a state law change on that, I believe.
Yep.
And so I'm sure she's right on top of it, but we'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Trill.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So overall, excellent, Dr. Bracy and Mr. Falk. I really enjoyed seeing where our money is going. It's a beautiful thing, particularly when it comes to our school safety. I'm a huge advocate, as many of you know, when it comes to trauma and mental health. It's very important and definitely should be a priority. So there really isn't a question there as to why we should be funded. It's necessary. The only question that I did have was, I know that we said, if I read correctly, that the positions that we're looking to fill with the SSOs going to the elementary schools were part-time. So is that just in the morning as they're coming in, but then if I come at lunch to pick up my kid and I'm carrying, it won't be detected, or nobody's just going to be standing there, but it could still go off, or how does that play?
Anyone, we have them there in the morning because that's when the volume comes in. Car riders, buses, so that's when we need the additional manpower. Now, during the course of the day, when they're gone, you have very few people that come in, but when they do come in, they still have to go through the system. We just won't need them to be there for an 8-hour day.
And just for clarity, every elementary school has an SSO already, so they have one on stop. We're doing this because, as Dr. Bracy said, you have multiple entrances in the morning. We're going to need somebody to man at least 2 entrances at every school. In some schools, it may be a third entrance, but that's why we want to make sure we have some extra hands in the morning, throughout the morning, to make sure we get everybody in safely.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Dr. Whitaker.
One question concerning the casino. Do we have an estimate of how much money is supposed to trickle down to us from the casino?
No, ma'am. That conversation has not been had, to my knowledge, Dr. Bracy.
No, sir.
When we met a number of years ago when we had the funding formula, we talked about putting that on the table. At the time, it was few years away. Nobody knew what the revenue streams were going to be, so on and so forth. You know, the casino in Danville, just to give you some clarity, that's generated, and that's a small casino. They haven't built their new one. That's generated a lot of money. I believe, if I'm correct, the operators, the locality operators, get between 6 to 8% of the revenue from the state off the top because it's being operated in their locality. So that's a baseline. You also look at your restaurant taxes, your meals taxes, all of those other revenues that are generated through the casino that are new. So it probably is going to be a substantial amount. I heard one estimate at 16 million, but don't quote me. Don't quote me. I just heard that. But that's an estimate of what the new revenue would be. So that's something that we probably need to have a conversation about to see how that can be factored into future funding sources.
Right. And we did have that, not to jump in, but one of the last liaison meetings where we were all in attendance was a couple of city managers ago now, and it was stated that, you know, they didn't know what the revenue was going to be, and they didn't want to hem anybody in. So, but when we have our liaison meeting this next time, you know, it's coming back up for discussion. Oh, I did want to add one other thing. The pay and I wanted to go back to what Vice Chair Atkinson said, the pay and compensation. So the last time we did one here in Portsmouth has been about 20 years. So when we talk about a pay and compensation study, we're talking about a 20-year compression. And so what I believe to know, and what I believe has happened in other places, is that you get the professionals to come in and you sit down and you look at your revenues, you look at your revenue streams, and you build that into your ask over years, because I think it was a 4-year implementation when we did it back in, I'm going to say it was somewhere around 04 is when I got my bump for being here and how everything shook out. So when we talk about this pay and compensation study, which has been an ask for me when we talk about our budget priorities for the past 3 years, knowing that it is that detailed and knowing that we are looking at least 20 years of compression for our staff that has been here. So it's going to be an undertaking.
And just with the compensation study, one of the reasons why we held off so long is because when you complete the study, you have to do something with it.
Exactly.
And it's gonna be millions of dollars to get everyone where they need to be on the correct step. And so we're gonna do the study, but just know it's gonna be a climb and a challenge.
Right.
To fulfill the requirement of the study.
When you said study, thank you, Chair. When you said study, it made me reminded me of another question I did have related to security.
I'm talking too much. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Look.
Put on your security.
Right,
I already know where you're going with it.
Okay. And so, Dr. Bracy, don't look nervous.
I'm focused.
You're focused. No, I just wanted to know. I know we are, thankfully addressing the immediate needs with the detection, but I would hope that we can maybe do an overall security assessment of our district, and I don't know what that would cost or what the needs would be, but I think that's important because detection is just one part. Risk assessment. Like an overall security risk assessment for our district, I think is very much needed.
Absolutely.
Right. And we're focusing on that.
Okay.
I know between what Dean is doing with Dr. Simmons, and in my letter to the interim city manager, I also stated that we would ask the police chief
That would be great.
to actually come through and walk the facility. But to us, to get the screening, the weapons detection systems, and to get those in first. But in addition to that, we're also looking at hidden spots in the building. So we're going to look at additional cameras. We're going to look at buzzers for the doors that lead outside, because if someone opens a door, we need to be notified and be able to see who that was and where that occurred, because you can have the best systems in the world, but if you don't have these other pieces in place, it's not going to work.
Including our SSO, just making sure we're properly staffed. Some schools might need more than others, just based on, the threat or vulnerabilities at that particular school. So just kind of looking at it, and it would change, year to year probably. But I think your point, Dr. Bracy, is very well thought out to we don't have to go out and spend a lot of money, but maybe partnering, like you said, with our police, kind of doing something where we can look at it overall, I think is great. In addition to maybe down the line doing a study, using what we have right now, getting the detection, looking at the open access points, but just kind of getting a better idea of what our security levels and our, just overall response capabilities are.
Right, and that's with the new position. We want that person to be able to monitor all of this and provide the training, make sure everybody's safety plans are up to date. When we look at the drills that we have to do to be prepared, we want to make sure that we do all of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Quick question.
Sure.
Thank you, Chairman. So, just a question as it relates to just safety alone, Dr. Bracy. Given kind of the current news and climate happening in Houston on their buses, is that something that our transportation department has kind of looked into to kind of rally around to say, hey, we need to make sure that we have some extra eyes and something there in place? Because I know that was a 6-year-old, so elementary bus.
We are. Dr. Simmons has talked to me about that.
Okay.
And I know the transportation department are looking to make recommendations to us as well to see what we can do to try to make sure that we cover any gaps there as well. So we are looking into that.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Agenda item 3.5 was agenda review February 23rd, 2023. That's located in your board docs, and of course, if you have any additions, please let myself and Dr. Bracy know so we can put that on the agenda for that date. Agenda item 3.6, subcommittee reports. Do we have any reports?
Thank you, Chair. The Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting met this week. It's been a busy week this week. And so some of the things that we talked about was looking at the master schedule for our elementary students to maximize teacher instruction time and teacher instructions. So one of the things that we're going to look at talking about are teachers teaching all subjects at our schools. Simply because we have so many students or so many teachers and vacancies that go open or that sit there unfilled, or teachers leave and we're unable to replace. And so for case in point, my son last year in 5th grade lost the reading and social studies teacher. And so there was no teacher to really fill that void. So we have 5th graders that lost out on reading. We have 5th graders that lost out on social studies, and it happens across the board at every grade level and at every school. It's not just a few schools where this happens. So looking at master schedules and maximizing teacher time and maximizing the fact of student learning to put things into perspective as far as how it impacts our student and our learning. And we know that we have learning gaps from COVID, and then this is one of those lingering pieces, with staffing. It all just kind of came. We've had a teacher shortage for about a decade now, but it's just kind of, snowballed with COVID. So that's one of the things we talked about. And that was really the one thing I wanted to bring to you guys, to let you know that it is in discussion. They're talking about it. They're looking at master schedules, and so it's going to be a discussion point, but I think we all needed to be aware.
Awesome. I can go ahead and report for Human Resources. I sat on the Human Resource Committee yesterday, and it was actually very educating for me to know and understand the process behind the scenes and what our departments are really working hard on. And Jessica is outstanding as a mind really to serve and to really help our schools. And so I'm really excited to serve on that board, to really see where we can go, because it's already doing amazing work. And Dr. Bracy, they're working together in the whole recruitment and retaining. That's really the name of the game right now. Recruiting and retaining, going to different job fairs, and really making sure that we're standing out. And gosh, she built a pilot program that I won't even talk about, but it's amazing, and I know that it will be something that the state will want to be a part of real soon. So I'm excited.
Well, sorry, I thought we were going around the table. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vice.
Mr. Park, speaking of pilot programs.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody just giving me like keywords to just refreshing my memory. Is there any update on the funds for the pilot programs?
I had a brief email exchange, very brief, last Friday, I believe, that they're still reviewing, and we're trying to go get everything on it. And you're speaking of the MWBE pilot program for youth entrepreneurship, as well as for our business training. Yes, I had a very brief email kind of back and forth just to kind of get where we were, and we're still trying to make sure that everything is in line with the budget goals and the budget areas for the state. I will give you an update as soon as I have something more concrete, but we still are conversating, so it hasn't died.
So are they saying the money's not there? Or?
Well, no. What happens, as we've said, in VDOE, you have to put it in object codes. And so the way our budget was designed, there were things that wouldn't fit technically in a regular operating budget code like we do with normal VDOE grants. So what we're trying to do is make sure we put them in the right place so that they can load the funding in that. And then when we do reimbursements, we can have the justification that it should be here and this is why. It's just different, for lack of a better term. Some people think that grants come in, you get $1.5 million and they just give it to you. It has to be in categories, and you have to categorize it. You have to make sure that the activities are in the right place. So people that might not be in the process 2 years later will say, oh, I see that this should have been here. Oh, okay, I understand why that's there. That's all it is. It's just a matter of making sure it's in the right place. And then once it's loaded, you go.
Gotcha. So we're not going to have an issue because the grant was written for the program to start
In
September.
Right.
And we're in.
Now, normally what happens, you get extensions. That program was written to be, I believe, a 3-year program.
Right.
So you wouldn't been able to do it in 1 year anyway. That funding has already been allocated. Normally what they do is they give you extensions on that funding over the course of however long you decide that, or you come to the table and say, this is how long it's going to take us to do what we need to do. They won't penalize you because there's been a stop, start, or it wasn't allocated or something like that. They're going to give us extra time to do it based on the nature of the grant.
So you're not, I just want to make sure that you're not in limbo. Is there like a timeline? Is there an expectation of when they will get back to you with?
All I can tell you is, I'll give you a prime example of one that came very similar to this. It took us about 6 to 8 months to get through everything. And I'm not excusing that because this is a VDOE process, but they came to us and said, you've been approved for this one, and it was CTE grant.
Right.
We sent in the proposal. We went back and forth. And then it took about 6 to 8 months to get everything all together. It's not uncommon. It's just one of those things where with different offices and different people involved in the process, you got to go through everybody, make sure everybody's okay. Just to give a good example, when you do a budget with the VDOE, there are 7 levels of approval. The first 3 are us. The last 4 are them.
Gotcha.
And so it may get to person number 6 and they say, wait a minute, we don't understand this. Boom, kick back to me.
Right.
Now Theo has to explain it. So Theo explains it, then we go back through that process again.
Right.
So this is just the process of VDOE. I really can't explain it, to be honest with you, but it's not that we're in jeopardy of anything.
Okay.
It's just how the business works.
Thank you.
That's
Yes,
how
ma'am.
DCJS is too.
Yeah, got one of them too.
Just to be clear.
Yeah, I did want to add one other thing. Doctor, and I don't remember who the email came from, and I apologize, but there was an email sent about tutoring and opportunities for remediation at the schools. It was sent into a spreadsheet. That was part of the conversation that we had with Dr. Bracy. And so one of the things I have asked them for is to kind of brief us on some very preliminary, because right now we're in the middle of these growth assessments. I don't know if you guys remember, the State Department has kind of come in and put growth assessments in, and Dr. Wynn and both Dr. Wynn and Dr. Nottingham have said we got to be careful about what they're going to do with them. And so there's some, not issues, but there's some straightening out that the State Department's trying to figure out how to compare apples to oranges, but also to for us to kind of sit down and look at data and see where some of our strengths and some of our opportunities lie when it comes to remediation and opportunities for our kids to be successful on, especially that graduation path when we talk about SOLs and verified credits. So that should be a closed meeting discussion here before long, simply because it deals with student performance.
I'll just be brief. We had the Budget Finance Committee meeting, which resulted in today's presentation. And then we had the CTE meeting, and just more continuation of what we've been talking about lately, what Ms. Shoemaker mentioned and our fabulous student rep mentioned, just trying to increase participation was one of the questions I had brought up. Talking about the excitement behind the GoTech labs, eventually expanding those beyond. We talked about our CNA program. What else? Oh, I'm losing my thought. We talked about bringing the CTE programs in-house as well, and the progress with that, and the what was going to be requested. And I had one more thing. I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm going to remember it later after this.
That'll be for next week.
Yeah, we can talk about that after the Super Bowl.
Really quickly, I know I've been hounding you about tutoring as well. The information, what can I give out to the public?
I mean, that is what we're doing.
Is that okay? Because again, I've had a lot of people ask from high school, middle school to elementary about tutoring since last year, and so I want to give them something, and I didn't want to just give them that, right? And so is that okay to disseminate, or should I just wait until we create something else? Or
yes, if let's say if somebody from Lakeview comes to you and said, hey, what's going on at Lakeview, you can look up there and send them that information.
Now what about something that I can send, that I can like put out, because like to like media, like social media, like what can we create something? Because again, I get a lot of parents to ask, and like seriously, it's to the point where I need an assistant, not just with that, with just different stuff. But if I can just have something like visible for them to see, like, oh, she did post this, or she did provide this, and I can go up there and see what school, provides this tutoring, accessibility for that. Like, is it something that I can put out there?
Well, I tell you what we can do. We can gather it, put it together.
Pretty please.
And then we can push it out there, and then.
Thank you.
And you can borrow it.
I appreciate
you.
You.
Can share it.
I appreciate you.
Okay.
I remembered what it was. I
told you next meeting.
I did mention it because, and I had to look over at our liaison that's over here. It reminded me, but there was talk, and it's still just kind of talk and some ideas about increasing, again, awareness and participation. And it's not in stone, of course. It's just some ideas that were thrown out at our committee meeting from our Star-based rep, as well as our city councilman, about maybe utilizing more Star-based opportunities in the summertime with what we already offered to Portsmouth Public Schools, again, which is ideas, and that was thrown out as a possibility with partnering with our CTE program. So, yes.
Ms. Hines and then Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Well.
Can I, Sarah? It was
Sure.
So just to piggyback off what Board Member Thomas said, I sent Dr. Bracy a whole list of that, and it includes that regarding Star-based.
Okay.
Yeah, I got that list, and I sent it to Mr. Falk. So we're gonna take a look at all that. Yeah, we got it.
Normally I would let y'all go all night, but I have somewhere to go tomorrow.
I'm gonna piggyback on what Ms. Shoemaker was asking about tutoring opportunities, because I'm also gonna say yes, we need to be aware aware of it, but our schools and our guidance officers need to be their best proponents for student success and student opportunities. And so while, yes, we can do something, I think the onus of that, and if it's already being done by schools, I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just saying we need to make sure that our school community at that intimate school level knows what their opportunities are, and that should be posted on their website. That should be guidance counselor discussion. That should be posted in teachers' classrooms so that students know what, the when, the where, and who to even ask. While we are here and we are working with Dr. Bracey to support what he does, the schools and the teachers need to take some onus of that as well and promote it within their intimate communities. And I'm going to leave it alone.
Thank you. Dr. Whitaker.
Just a reminder, when will we have a discussion of the draft issue?
I prepared a memo and submitted it today to Dr. Bracey and to Chairman Patillo, so we can have it when it gets scheduled on the closed session.
If it's okay, we can do it on next scheduled meeting, maybe in the early session.
And then one other issue, with the CTE, have we ever considered doing summer intensive type programs again?
I think that's kind of, I don't want to steal the star-based yet. I don't want to steal the star-based thunder, but that,
I mean,
look,
for high
I keep
school.
looking over here.
So with the, I know we do a lot during the summer.
Right.
We push a lot of it to the programs at Starbase for the STEM pieces, and the CTE is now embedded into
regular curriculum.
right.
I was just thinking if you could do like one program. Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I'll do.
high
Yeah, I'll have a conversation with Mr. Hill in that regard to see what we can do.
And Dr. Cotton and I will email you our operations and technology report.
From Arizona?
Where you going?
We don't mind hearing it right now.
If all hearts and minds are clear.
A few more questions.
Where you
Just a
going?
few more I thought of.
Move for adjournment.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.